welcome into Morning Jocks here on Jocks 94.5. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you for the next hour, recapping everything over a very frigid weekend. I guess the good news is a lot of us had a good excuse to, not leave the house this weekend. Hopefully you got to watch a good bit of sports action there. Of course, we have our national championship matchup set up for January the 20th, 1 week from today. Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I don't know how many people expected that to be the matchup, especially early on in the year after Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. And then maybe you still had hope in Ohio State even after they lost to Michigan at the end of the year, which is how much talent they had. But what a game that was between Ohio State and Texas on Friday. We're going to recap that, of course. We had big weekend in college hoops as Alabama and Auburn both stay undefeated in SEC play, but unfortunately for Auburn, that comes with a little bit of a price. And then we have the NFL playoffs as well. So, I mean, you really couldn't ask for more for the past 3 or 4 days in terms of the sports world. You got just about everything that you could ask for. So we got plenty to get into here today. Want to hear from you as well. Get your thoughts on the national championship matchup. What do you think about no SEC team being in the national championship game now for the second year in a row? But let's start off where we left you on Friday, because a couple hours after we went off the air here on Friday, we had the Cotton Bowl between Ohio State and Texas. And a lot of people, myself included, honestly, to a certain degree, I didn't think this game was going to be as low scoring as it was. And honestly, props to Texas for making it closer than I kind of thought it would be. And I know that it was a loss for Texas, but I was a little bit impressed just from the standpoint of, I hadn't really seen a whole lot from them this year that made me confident going into a matchup like this because, we saw them against Georgia a couple times, didn't go their way. The first time got blown out, then the SEC title game, you let Georgia come back in the second half with a backup quarterback, and it just didn't inspire a lot of confidence. But, the defense for Texas really made a statement, I thought, against Ohio State. And you had a great football game, kind of maybe, if anything, maybe a little boring early on in that one because, of course, Ohio State does what they do, right? They start off hot. They go down the field on their first drive. They score 7, and you're like, man, all right, this is going to be just like the other 2 games, right? They're going to get out here early. Then it looks like on their next possession, they're going to do the same thing. Then Travion Henderson decides he wanted to slap a dude and gets him a 15-yard penalty, and that kind of stopped them dead in their tracks, and that kind of halted things for them. Then you see Texas late in the second quarter. They go down. Jaden Blue scores on a little pass from Quinn Ewers from about 15 yards out. Like, oh man, this is all tied up at 7. We're going to go into halftime. Ohio State's going to run this thing out. We got ourselves a ball game. No, then you get the little screen pass to Travion Henderson, and he goes 75 yards down the field. Shout out to Chris Fowler, who during the call goes, yeah, man, you got to watch for this guy. He can take a house call at any time. And then boom, seconds later, he's streaking down the field, and you're like, oh man, all right, how did you let that happen, Texas? And so Ohio State goes in with the lead. Then, Texas evens it up again. Jaden Blue pass from Quinn Ewers makes it 14-14 in the third quarter. Then Ohio State has another good drive, kind of does what they do. They go up a score, and then Texas. Oh, Texas.
It was right there.
You get it down to 1st and goal from the 1-yard line.
The one.
I'm sure Pete Carroll was having some PTSD if he was watching this game at home. Yep, you have a 1st and goal at the 1-yard line, and for whatever reason, let's just call it what it is, right? Sometimes we overthink things in life.
Yep.
Sometimes we overthink things. Sometimes we call it what you want. You try to get cute with it. You try to, you think you're going to outsmart the coach on the other side when sometimes you should probably just stick with your guns and, I don't know, man, kind of load it up and push your quarterback forward for about 3 yards on top of the fact that, look, I understand, Quinn got you in that position and you want to stick with him. Arch Manning's kind of your running threat. and he has been at that spot in times this year. I think that later in the season there have been opportunities for them to use him, and they have not for whatever reason. Um, but long story short, you end up in a 4th and 8, something like that. You have the toss run that they had on 2nd down, where you go from 2nd and 1 to 2nd and 8, where you're putting yourself in that situation where you're now going to have to throw it. That was one of the worst play calls. And Steve Sarkisian is going to have nightmares about that one for a long time. But you get to 4th down, about 4th and 8. Last play to tie it up, hopefully be able to hold on defensively. Jack Sawyer comes around, strip sacks Quinn Ewers, picks it up, scoops and score 83 yards down the field. And that's all that she wrote. So if you missed it on Friday, this is how the game-changing, the game-sealing play sounded on ESPN for Jack Sawyer in Ohio State. Yep, that's how it sounded there on ESPN. And yeah, I mean, if you hadn't heard by now, Jack Sawyer and Quinn Ewers were roommates at Ohio State. Quinn Ewers 1 year there, so that was a fun little storyline that goes along with that, and everything else. Just, Jack Sawyer being a kid that's from not far from the campus of Ohio State. He's been there for 5 years now. He's one of those cases where, he's I guess what we would call an old soul in the world of college football now, where he loved Ohio State. That's where he wanted to go, and nothing was going to keep him from staying there and finishing his career there. And what a cap on a fantastic career, and a guy that'll probably have a very, very good NFL career as well. But what a way for that to close things out. One more game left for Ohio State. But yeah, what a moment. What a win for Ryan Day and Ohio State. Again, I mean, I think a lot of us were expecting this. I felt good about it because I said, oh yeah, I think Ohio State will win by 2 scores. And they did. I didn't think it would play out quite like that. But yeah, Ohio State beats Texas 28-14. And I think, one of the takeaways from this game is Ohio State did not play anywhere near the level they did in the first 2 games. And they still ended up winning by 14. And Jeremiah Smith had 1 catch for 3 yards, which granted, it's a better stat line than the Penn State wide receivers had against Notre Dame. But still, a guy that was looking like maybe the best player in college football, for Texas to limit him that way, kudos to them and Jahdae Barron. But it just kind of shows you how good Ohio State was. So what were your takeaways from the game, Damian, and now heading into the national championship?
Yeah, to your point, Texas's defense played about as well as you possibly could against this Ohio State team so far in the playoffs. And Sark is going to get grilled, because to me, when you have it 1st and goal from your opponent's 1 yard line, you scrap the analytics book, You scrap all that. We got 4 downs. My offensive line, we are getting foot to foot. And it's by God, we will run quarterback sneak, we'll run fullback dive, we'll run halfback dive until we get into the end zone. Because in that situation, you go to your jumbo package. There's no need to try to get it. It's like, hey, give me the heaviest brothers we got on the team, put them all on the front lines. If my quarterback can't find a way to sneak it across the goal line from 1 yard out, then we just don't deserve to win the football game.
Exactly.
And as soon as they call it a tall sweep into the boundary, it's like, wait a minute, Sark. Like, what's going on right now? You're overthinking. You're having paralysis by analysis right now. Because to me, it's got to get to the old school way of football of saying, I just got to have my front 5, my fullback, my running back, however many tight ends I need to have on the football field. We are going to put the strongest and best bodies we have and just muscle our way into this end zone. Because at least at that point, your defense had played about as well as you possibly could, and you're at least giving them a chance of saying, hey, if you stop them and give us another possession, we can go out here and win this ball game. But I think that with especially with the amount of time that you had on the clock, you should have been like, scrap whatever you think that we need to do as far as spreading this thing out. Even if you start off and spread and shift to a goal line package and sneak it in. Because to me, you're on the 1 yard line. No need to overthink this. It is literally Wisner, Blue, whoever's in the backfield. you suffocate the football till you get across the goal line. And to your point, you got Arch Manning back there.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking under center snaps. If you don't want to put Quinn in there because you think he may get beat up and try to go over the pile, put Arch in there and say, hey, big dog, now's your time to stamp yourself as a Manning legacy yourself. How big could this moment have been if, into the folklore of just the Manning family of, hey, Arch Manning got into the college football semifinals and gave, Texas a sneak that changed the ball game. Because at that point, you're tied 21-21. And again, to what your defense had done so far, who knows? As long as you would have stopped TreVeyon Henderson, you probably would have had a chance to get the ball back. So I think overall, when I watched the game, Texas did everything they at least neutralize this offense because they only ran for 81 yards. And what we've seen from TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, Quinshon Judkins had some good runs, but it seemed later in the ball game they were hard to come by. So your defense played as well as they possibly could to keep you within striking distance and keep you within striking range. And then your offense, for as inconsistent as they have been all season long, it was almost the closest time that Texas had been to put a full 60 minutes together of, okay, this team should be playing for a national title. But again, there's going to be a lot of, hoopla of just plays here, plays there. But I do think that goal line stand from that Ohio State defense completely changed this ball game, and that's how they ended up winning by 2 scores.
Yeah, and to your point on that, I mean, when that happens, there's over 2 minutes left on the clock. So let's say worst case scenario, right? You get stuffed at the goal line. All right, Ohio State's got 1st and 10 at their 1 yard line, and you have 3 timeouts as well as the 2-minute timeout to go there. So even there, okay, credit to Ohio State, right? If they're able to go and kill the clock at that point, but your defense had been your strong suit really the entire season, and especially in this game. And, if you got 4 timeouts and that defense, putting pressure on Ohio State at their 1 yard line, I like your chances of getting the ball back. Granted, yeah, okay, you might get the ball back with, a minute and a half, minute and 20 seconds and no timeouts and have to, just kind of go for it. But that's a much better situation than the one that you ultimately ended up in. And then, yeah, I mean, at that point, Texas is down 14, you're trying to come back, and, Quinn Ewers throws a interception to Caleb Downs. I know that probably made a lot of people in this area happy to see. But yeah, hats off to Ohio State again. Impressive win over Texas. They advanced to the national championship game where they will face off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish a week from today, next Monday at 6:30 on ESPN. So hopefully that's going to be a good game. I saw Ohio State right now somewhere around a 10-point favorites what they opened at. Now it looks like maybe 8.5, 9 is a little bit closer to that number. It's a pretty big spread right there.
Seems a little thick.
It's a pretty big spread. And I think, again, a lot of that plays into we just saw Ohio State play not their best football and beat Texas by 14. So should be a great game, though. Again, 2 good defenses. It's just going to be a question of if Ohio State's firing on all cylinders offensively. I don't know how Riley Leonard and company are going to be able to answer to that, but, we'll see. I'm sure Marcus Freeman and that staff will have a good game plan to be ready to go. So that'll be fun to watch as we close out the college football season. I know for a lot of you, probably like good riddance. Let's get out of here. Let's move on to college basketball season. But, we got one more game. We're going to miss it when it's gone. So let's enjoy it next week, even though, let's be honest, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people in our listening audience that are particularly rooting for either of these teams because I don't really care for either of them to win, but one of them is ultimately going to have to win. So we will see how that plays out. And yeah, so Ohio State, Notre Dame national championship game next Monday. Looking forward to that. Want to get your thoughts as well, though. What do you think of the matchup? What do you think of Ohio State's win over Texas? What did you think of the SEC really overall in 2025? Because again, 2 years in a row now, no SEC representation in the national championship game. You did get 3 teams in the college football playoff, but I think we can all agree that while the SEC is still, in my opinion, I don't think there's really any doubt that they're the best conference in really all of college athletics at this point. It's disappointing because we're used to having somebody to root for a championship game, and now you haven't had that for a couple years. And next year, we'll see. Texas, Alabama, Auburn, who knows? Will represent the SEC in the college football playoff. But want to get your thoughts on that. 205-834-9450, because we have a lot left to talk about as well. Alabama and Auburn on the hardwood over the weekend, as well as the everything from a cold but busy sports weekend when we return right here on Morning Jocks on Jocks 94.5. Good morning, Jocks. Conrad and Damien here alongside you, recapping everything over the weekend. Just broke down Ohio State's win over Texas, advancing to the national championship game over Notre Dame. And then we turned the page to Saturday, and Saturday was dominated by the NFL playoffs, which we will get to later in the show, but also college basketball, and it was a great day for SEC basketball and a good day for teams here in the state. You know, Alabama and Auburn, you win, but unfortunately for Auburn, that came with a little bit of a price. So we'll start off there. Auburn going on the road to face South Carolina. They get the 66-63 win, another nail biter there in SEC play for Auburn. But, shout out to South Carolina. They came out in the first half, played really, really well. Unfortunately, of course, Janai Broome goes down with the ankle injury. He was still able to play a little over half the game, but he only finishes with 6 points. We do know the good news on Janai Broome is his ankle injury is not going to require surgery. It is a non-surgical ankle sprain. Now, granted, the timetable for that is still a little bit up in the air, but from what I was able to gather, just doing a little research and looking at these kinds of injuries, I would guess he'll probably be out for a couple of weeks. I would also think if you're Auburn, you probably want to play it safe on this one because, again, right, we know Auburn, they're good enough to. They're certainly not the same team without Janai Broome, but they are still good enough to make their way through the SEC. And again, you're more worried about March and getting there and being healthy when the tournament comes. So I would think they'll probably be a little safe with Janai Broome, but the good news, it's not going to require surgery. So hopefully he's back out there sooner rather than later because, I mean, again, he's not only been Auburn's best player, but he's been one of the best players in all of college football or college basketball, excuse me. And I believe at last check, he has the second best odds right now to win the Wooden Award, which if you don't know, that's basically the Heisman Trophy of college basketball, behind Cooper Flagg of Duke. Granted, Cooper Flagg had 42 points this weekend. So, that is what that is. He's pretty good as well. But the good news for Auburn, you're still able to get the win over South Carolina. Nick Pringle missing a couple of free throws there late for South Carolina. So I know Auburn fans were happy to see him again after his departure from Tuscaloosa. So that kind of seals the game there for Auburn. But you had Miles Kelly going off. He had 14 points to Hod Pettiford with 15 points. He was big for Auburn coming in that game off the bench. Chaney Johnson gave you 9 points off the bench. And it was really just, it was about the defense and South Carolina just not being able to hit a lot of their shots. South Carolina only 4 of 16 from behind the 3-point line. They shoot 41% for the game. They missed a number of free throws, only a little over 50% there. And, if you're Auburn, you only turn the ball over 6 times. And you just, you just kind of get a whole team effort. And that's kind of what we talked about with Auburn, right? Is the depth of having a bunch of guys that can contribute. And even, you don't need somebody to go off and have 30 points for you every night. You just need a little bit here, a little bit there. And that's exactly what you got for Auburn. So I know now, you're turning your eyes to Janai Broome and when he's going to be able to return and how that's going to impact you here in SEC play. But there are 3 teams in the conference that are undefeated right now, and that would be Auburn, Alabama, and Ole Miss. And Alabama and Ole Miss are going to play tomorrow night. So one of those teams will no longer be undefeated, but certainly a good start to SEC play, all things considered, for Auburn. A win is a win in this league. I know some people are going, they barely beat Texas, and now they barely beat South Carolina. Yeah, hard to win on the road in the SEC. What a concept there. So Auburn happy to get out of there with the win, and hopefully Janai Broome back on the floor here soon.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the most complete game for Auburn, even when he was in, and it was a struggle. I mean, they were down at halftime, and that, like you said, to your point of playing in the SEC, you can't take any of these teams for granted. And I know for Auburn now, it's going to be difficult, kind of losing the backbone, the centerpiece of what your team is in Janai Broome, both offensively and defensively. But now it's time for those guys, because of the depth that Bruce Pearl has on the floor, now it's time for everybody to elevate their game to hold face until he finally comes back. And to your point, too, I wouldn't rush this if you were Janai Broome and the Auburn coaching staff and the training staff. And it's like, hey, until you feel like you are at 100%, we are taking this game by game, week by week, day by day, because we're going to need you for the backstretch of this season in March. So the biggest thing right now, get that ankle healthy, get back to moving up and down the floor. And you, again, good thing that you're avoiding surgery. And you may not feel like you are still as explosive as you once were before the injury, but you want to be as close to 100% before you step back on that floor. Because right now, this Auburn team, they're good enough to be in games without you. Now, if you're back, 1,000%, get out there, do what you need to do. But I think for Janai and really just this team as a whole, it's, all right, where are the key pieces? How are these rotations going to look now? Because you're missing, 3 blocks a game. You're missing a couple threes a game. You're missing the leading scorer on your team, but now everybody else has the chance to, put up some more shots. And now it's really started to get that depth to make up what he does individually. But I think this Auburn team is talented enough to go out and still hold, stay above water until he comes back at 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I mean, it's going to be a little bit more on a guy like Dylan Cardwell's shoulders now to kind of be that presence down in the post for Auburn. He had a couple blocks in the game on Saturday. So guys are going to have to step up, but like you said, Auburn is talented enough to where without Janai Broome, they're still going to be able to win games in the SEC. It is ultimately get this guy healthy, get him back for March, and when the tournament comes, hopefully this team is 100% healthy. Now, on the other side of the state, you had Alabama in a top 10 matchup going and taking on Texas A&M. This was another good game where a little bit, maybe a little bit too close for comfort. And honestly, shout out to Texas A&M playing without Wade Taylor, who, again, that's a guy that feels like he's been there forever. But we know that when he's on, he's certainly one of the best scorers in the country. So a big piece missing for Texas A&M. But they're still able to give Alabama everything that they wanted and then some. You had Zurich Phelps, who's kind of been their guy with Wade Taylor out, their scorer. He had 24 points on 9 of 29 shooting. 9 of 29.
Ultimate green light.
No kidding.
Ultimate green light.
Yeah. He was putting everything up. But yeah, he goes for 24. You get Pharrell Payne, gives you 23 off the bench there. But just not a good shooting night for Texas A&M. 22% from deep, 39% overall for the game. That just kind of, that Zurich Phelps line of 9 for 29, that just kind of was the theme for the entire team. And there was just too much Mark Sears on Saturday for Texas A&M. Mark Sears goes for 27, 4 of 10 from deep, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. Again, Alabama, the free throw shooting, not great for them, only 67%. 27 of 40, but think about this. 88 free throws were attempted in this game. There were, I think, 45 in the first half.
Yes.
It was a 3-hour basketball game.
Yes.
It is the longest basketball game that I've watched in a long time. And look, I get it. It's the SEC. Some things are going to get physical sometimes, but man, like, come on, let's swallow the whistle a little bit.
Especially late in that game. I was like, oh my God, are y'all trying to keep Texas A&M in this ball game?
Well, and to be fair, there were times where it felt like whether it was for Alabama or Texas A&M, it went both ways at times. You'd get a call on one end of the floor and then not get it on the other end. And it's like, all right, if we're doing that, let's just not call it because I think we're all ready for this game to get going. Like, let them play. Let's get some momentum here. It was a little frustrating to watch. Plenty for Nate Oates to walk away with there in that one. You've turned the ball over 15 times compared to 8 for Texas A&M. And that's kind of the tail of the tape there. You let them go to the free throw line. Granted, thankfully, if you're Alabama, they didn't hit a lot of those because, Texas A&M should have been able to win this game at the free throw line, but they weren't. But you turn the ball over a lot. You have a lot of fouls. Again, not the best shooting performance, but you'll take it. And Mark Sears kind of putting the team on his back there at times and getting the win for Alabama. But Aiden Holloway, another good game, 15 points for him off the bench, 3 of 6 from deep. Chris Youngblood, 14 points. He made three 3-pointers as well. So some of these guys kind of coming along now for Alabama, getting some good minutes and some good scoring off the bench. But yeah, Alabama 94-88, a big win there over a top 10 Texas A&M team. So they also moved to 3-0 in conference play. And like I said, they will play Ole Miss, who is the other undefeated team in SEC play. That is going to come up tomorrow night. A little bit of a Alabama-Mississippi rivalry here as Alabama takes on Ole Miss at home, and then Auburn goes back to Neville where they will face off against Mississippi State tomorrow night. And then Texas A&M. You got Texas A&M, Kentucky. Think about this. Just a casual Tuesday night here in SEC basketball, and you have 3 top 25 matchups with Alabama, Auburn, and then Texas A&M and Kentucky in the third one there. So that's going to be a lot of great action coming up tomorrow. Really quick, just kind of going down what we had around the SEC over the weekend as well. Tennessee, a close one. Texas, look, you're 0-3 in the SEC, and that's not where you want to be. But again, they gave Auburn everything they wanted. They gave Tennessee everything they wanted, but Tennessee gets out of there with a win, 74-70. Kentucky, Mississippi State, that was a great game. Kentucky with a 95-90 win there. Florida knocks off Arkansas 71-63. And if you heard what John Calipari had to say, it is what it is, apparently. And he doesn't know who they play next. He's not worried about. He's just that thing is looking like it might be a disaster right now with John Calipari. Georgia getting their second straight win over a top 25 team as they knock off Oklahoma, who started the year 13-0 and now is on a 3-game losing streak to start life here in the SEC. And then Ole Miss knocks off LSU, Missouri knocks off Vanderbilt, and that is your SEC basketball recap for the weekend. Again, a lot of great games coming up tomorrow night, some of which you'll be able to hear right here on JOX 94.5. But that's not everything that happened over the weekend, because we had a playoff game tonight, but we got a lot of great action over the weekend. Who's moving on, who's going home, some head coaching changes as well. And we also want to hear from you. See you on the phone lines, wanting to talk some SEC basketball and college football. All of that coming your way when we return here on Morning JOX. .635, welcome into Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you. Off to McRoy and Kublik in the morning. They'll be with you from 7 to 10. Then three-man front with you from 10 to 2. And then, of course, Paul Feinbaum show to wrap up your day from 2 to 6 right here on JOX 94.5. Well, it was an exciting weekend so want to get to all of that. But first, we do want to hear from you. get to a couple of your texts, get to your phone calls real quick here. So we have Lewis texting in about the Alabama-Texas A&M basketball game. He asks, was that an NCAA record for fouls? Refs made that game hard to enjoy and way too long. I'll be honest. Well, let's see. We can, the trusty power of Google here. Most fouls in a college basketball game. Because, I mean, I'm going to say that was not the most in a basketball game. Okay, here we go. You have, what year was this game? I don't know what year this game was, but in Memphis and SMU played, and they had 75 fouls called in one of their games. So that is the NCAA record there, Lewis. So not quite that many, but you had 58, so you were kind of in that territory. But yeah, a lot of fouls in that game. But hey, Alabama gets away with a win. But yeah, it was very long. It was like watching a football game in terms of length. We have Fanboy texting. He says the fouls in the Alabama game were unrealistic. They were trying their best to keep A&M in that game. And okay, I mean, I understand there were some questionable calls, but I thought there were questionable calls on both ends, right? Like there was one time where I think they called a foul on Phelps on the other end, and then Mark Sears came down the court, kind of gave somebody a little nudge going to the basket, and they didn't call it. Granted, I didn't think they should have called it, but I also didn't think they should have called the other foul either. It was more so just the inconsistency of, this guy can do this on one end of the floor and he can't on the other end of the floor. And I think that's where a lot of the frustrations came in there. But hey, if you're an Alabama fan, you are happy to come away with a win. Somebody that's happy that Auburn came away with a win, that's our buddy Don, who joins us now on the phone line. Don, how we doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, guys. Hope y'all had a good weekend.
We did, Don. Hope you did as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. After this, I'm on top of the mountain. It took the snow a good while to melt. Finally got able to get out and go down and watch basketball with PG and the gang, and then had a good time. But yeah, that injury, Conrad, buddy, it's gonna hurt us for a while. I was looking at our schedule. Have you guys ever had a sprained ankle?
Yes. It's not fun.
Yeah, Damian, buddy, as a former player, how many weeks do you think he's going to be out, in your opinion?
You probably, I mean, at the extent of his injury and like the way that it looked, I mean, there's difference between high, low ankle sprain.
He looked like he was hurt.
Yeah, he looked like he was in some serious pain. I'd probably say you're looking at 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. But I think the main thing is get him healthy and get him ready for March.
Yeah, and that's the thing about basketball too. Like he's constantly moving, he's constantly changing direction. So he's gonna have to be either the ankle's gonna have to be stable and strong before he can really get up the floor and make a difference, or his game is going to probably change as on the backstretch of the season. But it's all about just him being 100% healthy.
Absolutely. Well, Conrad, buddy, I think you said it. We're to win most of our games. I don't think we'll win all of them. Everybody in SEC is going to have a tough stretch. But after y'all play Ole Miss, Conrad, y'all got to go to Kentucky Saturday.
I know it's life in the SEC now. I saw somebody comparing. Who was it? Excuse me. I think it was Kentucky and Duke's record the rest of the way out, and it is night and day when you look at what you have to deal with in a conference like the ACC that, for a long time, I think was viewed as kind of the king of college basketball. And now here in the SEC, it's a gauntlet, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be that way for everybody. And I mean, hey, every team is good. I mean, Georgia's upsetting people. Not going to be, Vanderbilt's looked, a little sneaky good at times. Like there's going to be no easy games in the SEC this year.
Yeah. After we play our home game Tuesday night, we go to Georgia, and for the first time in about 15 years, they're probably going to be in the top 25 this week.
Yeah, they've done a very nice job so far this year, just like a lot of other teams in the SEC. So it's going to be fun, Don. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, I know one thing. I know Texas had a good football year, but welcome to the SEC basketball world, Texas and Oklahoma. You're both 0-3.
That is right, Don. Thank you for the call. Yeah, not an ideal start for either of those, especially Oklahoma, who came in 13-0. They were in the top 12, and then they get blown out by Alabama, and it's just kind of been downhill from there for the Sooners. So yeah, welcome to the SEC indeed. All right, but now we turn our attention to the NFL playoffs. Well, first off, we'll start off with the big coaching news from over the weekend. And this was, let's be honest, this was a move that should have been made last year. And I know Damian, probably a little bittersweet for you, but former Tennessee Titans head coach and Super Bowl champion as a player with the New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel. He has agreed to become the next head coach of the New England Patriots 1 year after Bill Belichick left the franchise. Gerard Mayo was kind of tagged. They had a deal in place for him to be the head coach in waiting. And then when Belichick left, that cleared the way for Mayo, and they decided they did not like what they saw. So he only makes it 1 year, and now Mike Vrabel goes and takes over. And I think this is a absolutely home run hire if you're the Patriots. I thought last year, when the Titans moved off of him, I think he's one of the 10 best coaches in the NFL. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I understand why franchises no, I don't. I get from a business standpoint, you feel like, oh, we need a fresh set of eyes in here. But this man he's a little bit old school, right? If you got some players that are a little soft, they're probably not going to be the biggest fans of him. But when I look at a football coach and what I would want in a football coach, Mike Vrabel checks just about every box. And so now New England with one of the top picks in the upcoming draft. You got Drake May, who looked pretty good at times this year. You still got some pieces on defense. Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, is one of the best in the league right now. So you've got some stuff going on there. But yeah, if you're a Titans fan, maybe a little bittersweet to see somebody else scooping him up.
It's all good. We're in the rebuilding stages. And think about this. If you don't know how good Mike Vrabel is, upon the recent success that we've had, at one point in time in his tenure, we were the number 1 team in the AFC.
Yeah, and honestly, he kind of ended the Patriots dynasty, right? And
Yep.
Was that 2019 when they won in the playoffs and
sent Tom Brady to Tampa Bay? Well, retirement, then Tampa Bay.
So he ends the dynasty, and then he comes back and tries to rebuild one of his own, I guess.
Yeah, and no, I agree with you 100%. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and there's no reason why he should have been out from a head coaching position. Even when he left the Titans, I was just like, somebody may want to scoop him up, and they need to now.
The fact he didn't get hired last year it's
crazy.
Is absolutely ridiculous.
No, but it's a perfect marriage. He knows the Patriots inside and out as a Super Bowl winner there. He doesn't mind working with absolutely nothing and still finding a way to win ball games. Like this is going to be a whole new look for the New England Patriots, and it's probably going to look back the way of the Belichick era, just with a new voice, because it's going to be physical. They're going to be built on the defensive side of the ball first. And if you have Ramondre Stevenson in your fantasy moving forward, I think his carries per game are going to be up a good little bit.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. So, yeah, I think that's a great hire there for the Patriots. It was also great because I got to see a couple of people kind of recirculating. If you've never seen the video of Will Compton impersonating Mike Vrabel when he was on the Titans and kind of like running a team meeting and impersonating him, it is hilarious. It is not safe for work. There are a lot of cuss words in it, but it's pretty entertaining stuff there. So, so a lot of optimism there in the future for it. We thought maybe it was going to be the Ohio State coach a month ago. Lots changed since then for Ryan Day's, the outlook for his future there at Ohio State. So good news all around there. But we did have playoff games. We had 4 of them. We have a 5th one coming up for you tonight. So we're going to take a quick break when we come back here on Morning JOX, recap everything from the first round of the NFL playoffs, who's advancing, who's going home, and who are our favorites to make it to the Super Bowl. All that when we come back here on JOX 94.5. Appreciate you tuning into Morning Jocks here this morning. Conrad and Damian with you, breaking down just a jam-packed weekend of sports goodness, from college football playoff to college hoops and now to the NFL playoffs, where we had 4 games over the weekend. We do have a 5th game coming up tonight, as you're going to get the Rams and the Vikings at 7 o'clock tonight on ESPN. The winner of that game will advance to face the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round of the postseason. But we'll start off with, I guess, the least interesting. Well, I don't know. The games on Saturday were both kind of duds. Let's just be honest about it. But in the first game, you had the Houston Texans taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Jim Harbaugh getting the Chargers back to the postseason in his first season there in LA. And we've heard all season long about how when he grows up, he wants to be just like Justin Herbert. Well, hopefully not this version of Justin Herbert, because all he did was go out and throw 4 interceptions.
Bad.
Against the Houston Texans in a game where, the Chargers get a couple field goals early. You're sitting there going, okay, going to have to get in the end zone at some point. But all right, it looks like Houston's maybe struggling to find their rhythm a little bit. And then, that was kind of all she wrote from that point on. Houston wins that one 32-12. Joe Mixon over 100 yards rushing. CJ Stroud 282 through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Nico Collins, a big game there, 7 catches, 122 yards, 1 touchdown. How about for the Chargers, though? Look, these are the stat lines for some of their receivers. All right, Ladd McConkey, the rookie from Georgia, 9 catches, 197 yards, and a touchdown. Ballin'. After that, Will Dissly, the tight end, 2 catches for 16 yards. Tucker Fisk, 1 catch for 15 yards. DJ Chark, 1 catch for 10 yards. Darius Davis, 1 catch for 4 yards. Quentin Johnson, 5 targets, no catches.
Yeah, the old.
Had to throw that one.
The old Quentin Johnston game.
Yeah, Sorry, he was just a massive bust as a first-round pick out of TCU. So I hate that for him, but yeah, he has certainly not been what the Chargers were hoping for. But Ladd McConkey had a great game, but as you can see, other than that, they were getting nothing from anybody else. And Justin Herbert just kind of forcing some throws. You could feel that, especially later in that game, they're just really pressing. And it was ugly, a game you want to forget. But unfortunately for the Chargers, that's the way that your season ends. And for Houston, a team that really had kind of sputtered their way through the regular season and kind of took advantage of playing in a weaker division. They now get to go and play the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. And, if they're able to play like that and kind of get in the short passing game, doing some good things in the running game, that could be interesting. But again, it's the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. So that's always going to be a tough one. Then you had the Ravens and the Steelers, a game where the Ravens are up 21-0 at halftime. The Steelers kind of made it interesting in the third quarter. They score a couple of touchdowns, but this game was really never in doubt for Baltimore. Derrick Henry goes out there, 26 carries, 186 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, 175 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, added 81 on the ground as well. And if you missed it last week, going into the playoffs, the Ravens scoring margin against other playoff teams this year was plus 120. So they beat the crap out of good teams, and that's what makes them so dangerous now in the playoffs, and they will advance to face the Buffalo Bills. But a big day for Derrick Henry, another former Tennessee Titan.
There's never been a player that I truly, when I say bittersweet, it's painful to watch how much success he's having in Baltimore.
Why do we still doubt that he can keep playing well?
You feel me?
I feel like the past 3 or 4 years, it's like, no, next year he's done for. It's like, I don't think so. He just had almost 2,000 yards this year.
6'3", 240 pounds. He's a grown man running this football. He's got a lot of tread left on them tires. And it's so hard to watch him have as much success in Baltimore because I just know if we were going to rebuild, by God, we needed to at least have 22 in the backfield to say, hey, we will find a quarterback for you. Just be patient.
Yep.
Be patient. How much money do you need? How much money do you want? My God, you're going to have to suffer. But watching him and Lamar Jackson in the backfield, you legit just don't know where the ball is going to go. And and to be honest, the receivers that Lamar Jackson's had, I'm not going to sit here and say Rashad Bateman is just, a top 10 receiver all of a sudden, but he's been pretty consistent. And then Zay Flowers, you still got Mark Andrews. And the defense for the Baltimore Ravens, one of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know what has happened in the past 2 months of just where did this team go?
Yeah.
Because everybody, I know Mike Tomlin, he gets a lot of praise for, he's never had a losing season as a Steelers head coach, but
You haven't won a playoff game in 9 years. So.
exactly. And it's, man, at some point you don't want to have to separate from it, but there's got to be some change somewhere.
Yeah. I would look at the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
that's been a problem for some time now. Yeah, maybe there's a interesting path ahead for Pittsburgh. But yeah, like you said, congratulations. You still haven't had a losing season under Mike Tomlin, but I think at this point you really don't care about that, and you're probably sick of hearing about it if you're a Steelers fan. Then yesterday you had the Bills and the Broncos, and let's be honest, Bo Nix, they come out hot. He has a 40-yard passing touchdown early on in the game.
That was it.
All right, let's see where this goes. And yep, that was, as you said, that was it. Josh Allen looking like the MVP. 20 of 26, 272 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 46 yards on the ground. James Cook, 120 rushing yards and a touchdown to go along with it. And again, Buffalo's good, man. And Buffalo and Baltimore in the divisional round is going to be huge. Interesting to note, though, Buffalo lost 3 straight games in the divisional round. So we'll see if they can get back to the AFC title game. Also of note, the only quarterback ever drafted by the Denver Broncos to win a playoff game, Tim Tebow.
Wow.
Yep, Tim Tebow.
Wow.
And then we had the nightcap last night. You had the Eagles taking down the Green Bay Packers 22-10. Jordan Love, horrible game for him, 3 interceptions. You fumbled the opening kickoff, gave the ball